The Ember Island Players, one of the funniest and certainly one of the silliest episodes in Avatar: The Last Airbender, occurs immediately after the darkest and most ambiguous and haunting episode of the show, the Southern Raiders. In the Southern Raiders, Katara confronts the man who killed her mother, and, as importantly, she confronts the darkness within herself. Katara is in many ways the opposite of Toph, in that Toph consistently insults people, makes slightly rude jokes, but ultimately is concealing her insecurities. She's really not as brutally tough and relentless as she wants other people to think she is. Katara is the opposite. She portrays this demeanor of gentleness, of motherly compassion and kindness. And that's not a facade, necessarily. It's not a lie, but it is an incomplete picture of who she is. The true Katara also includes a side of herself that's rather relentless and dark and determined and a bit obsessive. This side of Katara shows no hesitation in pursuing what she believes to be just and right. It is nonetheless a side of herself that goes against the moderation and pleasantness that is associated with typical societal conventions of what is considered to be good and right. This is a side of Katara that is a bit selfish. This is a side of Katara that allows her to boundlessly pursue the deepest and most forbidden desires of her heart. It is the underside of Katara, the side of her that lurks beneath this friendly, selfless, completely inoffensive demeanor. And when that side of Katara emerges, it is often not without good reason. It's when she finds something that she wants so badly that she is willing to commit actions that are rather callous and are rather selfish in order to get what she wants. This side of Katara is pure desire, pure elemental energy. It is the undiluted, grasping, imaginative, creative, nocturnal, wild, thrilling, terrifying of what she knows that at the core of herself she really wants, even if she does not always admit it to other people or even to herself. When Katara insults you, she means it. She means it very deeply, because it is that darkness within her flashing up wildfire-like, demonstrating that she is willing to act against the saintly demeanor that she cultivates. Katara is afraid of this part of herself, but that does not necessarily make it bad. And I believe the discrepancy between the Ember Island Players and the Southern Raiders is not just funny, but also a key indicator of why this darkness within Katara matters, why this ruthless relentlessness in pursuit of what she deeply yearns for is ultimately not a bad thing. When the Southern Raiders contrasts characters against the perceptions of those characters on the stage, oftentimes the effect is mere exaggeration. For instance, Aang has this rather impish, mischievous side, and in the play, that side of himself is played up and made rather ridiculous, made rather comedic and absurd. Zuko is, as Katara, wry as ever, points out, the closest to his perception in the play. Part of this is just Zuko's personality. He is very passionate. He is very dramatic. He is a bit histrionic sometimes. He casts himself in the role of this grandiose hero trying to pursue desperately and ardently a goal he yearns to achieve. Part of this is who Zuko is. Part of this is, interestingly, because he was kind of an actor in the first season of the show. He was playing a part. He was taking on the identity of someone not truly identical to his own organic beliefs and interests. Someone who only cares about this single monomaniac goal of capturing the Avatar. He throws himself into that role, and he honestly believes that it is what he wants for himself. Or at least what he needs to want for himself. But Uncle knows that it does not contain the vast multitudes that are innate to who Zuko is. So, the similarity between play Zuko and actual Zuko, in Season 1 at least, demonstrates how Zuko kind of was an actor back in Season 1. In contrast, I would perhaps controversially posit the argument that the time when you see the largest distance between how a character is portrayed in the play and who they actually are is with Katara. Yes, Katara is a bit dramatic sometimes. And to a certain extent, one can understand the scene when she's like, it's not like I'm a preachy, over-emotional crybaby who only makes speeches about hope all the time, and none of the other members of Team Avatar correct her. That's funny, but also, I think Katara is right to argue that's not who she is, or at least that's not a full portrayal of her. And I don't believe this is just a matter of exaggeration, like for Sokka, or Aang, for instance. I believe that it is something that fundamentally rings false, especially coming right after the Southern Raiders. Katara has this other side of herself, this wild, almost feral side, mythic, elemental, obsessive, brilliant, daring, horrifying, that is not accounted for at all in this portrayal of her. And so, I have always felt that the sharpest distance between the Ember Island versions of a character and the actual character is with Katara. And this discrepancy demonstrates why Katara's dark side is necessary. Because if it wasn't, she really would just be that preachy, over-emotional person. And I would hate her. Most people, I think, would dislike the character if she really was just that stereotypical and banal. Katara is playing a part as much as Zuko in a way. At least in Season 1. She's playing the part of the protective mother after her own mother is gone. A lot of fans criticize Katara for saying rather ruthlessly that Sokka didn't love their mother the same way she did. And it's a horrible thing to say, but she's not wrong. Katara is still closer to her mother, even after her mother's death, than Sokka. She was closer in life, and she's certainly closer now, considering that she feels in some way responsible for her mother's death, and considering the full picture that her mother sacrificed herself to save Katara, that feeling is completely justified, or at least partly justified, even if it's not a great feeling to have. Katara doesn't have the opportunity to indulge in this side of herself that's a bit more ruthless, a bit more defiant. But that side of herself prevents her from becoming a caricature. It prevents her from becoming so obsessively selfless that she loses sight of herself, that she loses sight of any individual identity, that she loses sight of her own creativity and her own cunning, and just becomes what others need her to be. Aang really does see her primarily for this good, selfless, motherly person that she pretends to be and partly is. When she reveals that this is not the entirety of herself, Aang is confused and rather unsettled. Zuko isn't. He understands her. He understands that rather feral, wild, elemental side of herself. He doesn't think this side of herself is good exactly, but he does believe it should be acknowledged. And the Southern Raiders ultimately is less the complete cleansing of the darkness within Katara than a reconciliation of these darkest parts of herself and the parts of herself that are moral and just and seeking the good. The most forthrightly moral decision that she makes is ultimately choosing to not kill the man who killed her mother, even if she believes he might deserve it. It's a moral decision for her because it is a very hard decision. It would not be difficult for, say, Aang to make this choice. But for Katara, it is hard. And that's what makes it a fundamentally powerful choice for Katara to make, one that reaffirms her basic goodness. The reaffirmation of this goodness is achieved, importantly, not through denying herself, not through pretending that this darkness within her doesn't exist, but through acknowledging it, realizing that it is a part of who she is, and still choosing to make the decisions that she believes are moral and right. This is something that Freud talks about quite a bit in Civilization and its Discontents, for instance. Trying to bury these primal impulses within ourselves, even if they're selfish and not conducive to a better society, is ultimately fallacious because they are a part of ourselves. Denying them doesn't make us superior people, it just leaves us with a feeling of malaise. Confronting them and ultimately still making moral decisions is the more mature and the more dignified and ultimately the more satisfying achievement. So anyway, thank you all for watching. If you liked what you saw today, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Donate to my Patreon if you can, and do want to see more videos like this before anyone else. Keep watching Avatar. Great show. Katara as a character, I respect her more and more the more I watch Avatar. Adios, comrades.